Well, this is probably you guys' favorite part of the review out of this week MLS action because not only the fact that you guys get to hear me talk about my two favorite teams suffering backbreaking losses on the road, including one in a very controversial way, but you guys get to hear me talk about a 8-goal thriller that probably shouldn't have happened, judging by what's going on around the league this week, and also repeatedly ask the question that I've been asking ever since VAR has been introduced in this league, and that is, what is the point of using VAR if you are not going to implement it correctly, and that when you make the decision of those calls based on VAR, it seems like it's just a judgment call in terms of the way how they make those decisions. But that being said, let us actually get into the first game. And the first game we're going to talk about is Minnesota versus FC Dallas. And this one really hurts for the Loons. Because while I understand that this game against Dallas was always going to be potentially tough, knowing the fact that this was a game that is an away game for the Loons, which means that usually they don't do as well as they do at home, or that this game was take place in 100-degree heat under the Texas sun. I thought this was a great opportunity for Minnesota to bounce back after that rare home loss against SKC, and especially facing against a Dallas team that doesn't seem like they're even back to match fitness and really look like they're ready to get back to their mid-season form in MLS. I didn't think Minnesota was going to potentially take a loss in this game, but instead that was not the case. And you know those goal scoring problem that FC Dallas had in the first three game? Yeah, it seemed like it's been fixed in this game, and partially it's been fixed because of some of the most lackluster defending I've seen the Loons done probably since when they basically had a lackluster defense in their first two seasons of the year. Now, in the first half, just 11 minutes into this game, Pico scored from Acosta to give FC Dallas a 1-0 lead and also snap a almost 300-minute drought that they have not got a goal all the way back to March in the second game of the season against Montreal. Then literally 60 seconds later, Jesus Vieira would score from Ricardo Pipe, and I basically wrote WTF with two question mark, and I probably should have fit a exclamation mark next to those two question mark because I was absolutely stunned of what I saw with Minnesota, and that this is something I see the Quakes maybe do occasionally with them giving up a goal and just kind of capitulate and gave up another one. But this is something I never see the Loons do, and under Adrian Heath, at least for the past 2 years under this team. But instead, we find ourselves down 2-0, and it could have been 3-0 down if Dallas wasn't as clinical as they shown after they got out to a quick 2-0 lead, because the Loons, for the first half, they looked like second best and really was going through the motion, and Dallas was really on top of this game. And we also had to ask our goalkeeper by the name of Greg to make some big save to just keep this one respectively at 2-0 heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, there was a 45-minute rain delay. Well, it wasn't really a rain delay, but more like a lightning delay that didn't get this game underway again until 9 o'clock. And Adrian Heath actually decided to do a Mateus Almeida move by making 4 changes into the squad. And this is something that we usually do not see Adrian Heath do very often, which is just making a complete change to change up the team whatsoever. But at the same time, I thought it was much needed with the way how the first half performance was. And it actually worked, because in the second half, the Loons definitely looked much better. And in the 55th minute, Dotson scored from Gregush, and yeah, that was a trademark Dotson banger goal to give Minnesota one back in this game. And that after that goal that we scored, the Loons really started to push Dallas, and Dallas would really look like they were on the road. Just 3 minutes after when we got a goal back, Raheem Edwards almost scored his own banger, but unfortunately it hits the post. Then Matt Hedges probably would want to thank the post for saving him there, because he accidentally looked like he flicked it into the back of the net, but of course the ball hits the post, and Minnesota once again was denied by the post for the second time tonight. Greg then did head to Rob Hara as FC Dallas, despite the fact that they were absorbing pressure from Minnesota. They were really troubling Minnesota on the break, and that once again, our goalkeeper Greg had to make a couple of big saves to keep this one at 2-1. Then Jose Aja scored what looked like was the equalizer, but it was disallowed because of an offside. And I'll tell you what, it was very close in terms of Aja being offside. And if anything, I feel like they probably should have looked at VAR to see whether or not if he was actually in an offside position. But either way, I thought that disallowed goal really kind of capitulate in terms of the spirit of the Loons of potentially getting back into this game, because after that Minnesota really started to kind of feel like they don't believe they're going to get this equalizer. And I guess maybe the heat also had a factor to it, because again, it was 100-degree heat when both of these teams were playing in this game. And then in the 95th minute, Hollinshead would basically put this game away with a penalty after just a sloppy mistake from Musa bringing down Michael Barrios in the box. And in the end, Dallas able to grab their first victory ever since opening day of this season back in February against the Union, as they won 3-1 against Minnesota in this one. Shots in this game, 11 shots compared to 15 that the Loons had, 7 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Loons had, 3 shots off target compared to 5 that Minnesota has, 1 shot that was blocked compared to 6 that Minnesota has, and possession-wise, 48% possession compared to 52% possession that Minnesota has. And, you know, it's back-to-back loss for Adrian Heath team, and that I'm not going to panic just yet in terms of the fact that Minnesota definitely did not start out well ever since they went into the semifinal of this MLS's back tournament. But there's definitely some concern level with the way how our defense definitely does not look sharp whatsoever, and that there are some shade of that defense that I remember from the first 2 seasons of this team after this performance. And also going forward on the attack, we gotta get going on the attack. Like, we have really been going back to the same issue we had last season, and well, especially at the tail end of the season, where this team just cannot score whatsoever and was really heavily rely on our defense. Well, now that our defense is not doing as well as last season, partially because Iko Para is not here, yeah, this could be a huge issue with this team, with the way that if they don't pick up the goal scoring threat, this could be a team that could easily start to crumble down the Western Conference table. And I think after this loss, I think they have now gone down to 3rd place in the Western Conference, and that it doesn't get any easier for Minnesota in the next game, because I know the next game we get to play against the Houston Dynamo, which means it's going to be another game where we're going to be playing in the hot Texas sun and pretty much play in a sauna kind of environment of a game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Colorado versus SKC. So, in the first half, and at least for the first 15 minutes of this game, SKC looked like they were the better side early in this game, and it looked like they were going to get the opening lead, but eventually Colorado did get back into this game, and there was definitely some half chances for both teams, but no breakthrough happening for both of these teams in the first half. Busio probably had or actually not Busio, this was actually Graham Zuzi that actually had a shot that just went wide, and that I thought that was probably the best opportunity either of these side had in the first half, and that in general the first half was kind of a little bit boring between both of these teams, and that they had to halftime at 0-0 in this game. Now, in the second half, we did get the opening goal in the 56th minute, and it's Cole Bassett who scored from Namilia to give Colorado a 1-0 lead. Then Melia would deny Lewis a chance for Colorado to get a 2-0 lead before Busio would be able to score a wonderful strike from 24 yards out. And I don't know why I put Colorado there. It should have been SKC there next to Busio name, but that ties the game at 1 apiece for this game, and that looked like SKC were looking to try to maybe get that second goal, and Yarbrough had to deny Polito to potentially prevent SKC of getting that second goal, until in the 78th minute, Gadi Kinna, of course, gets his second yellow for Sporting KC, and that Sporting KC, who looked like we're a team that we're maybe going to get the winner of this game, all of a sudden looked like a team that was just trying to hang on for this game, and that, Colorado, they had chances to potentially in the last 12 minutes with a man up to potentially get a much needed win at home, but that was not meant to be, as it ends 1-1 between both of these teams. And the shots in this game, 13 shots compared to 10 that the Rapids had, 3 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Rapids had, 6 shots off target compared to 3 that the Rapids had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that the Rapids had, and possession-wise, 63% possession compared to 37% possession that Sporting KC had in this game. And I guess Sporting KC will be the more happier side coming out of this, considering the fact that, anytime when you get a point on the road, and especially when you had to hang on late in the game after you saw one of your players getting sent off in this one, you're always going to be the more happier side. And that for Colorado, yeah, this is 6 games now that they have yet to get a win, and that they have not got a win ever since they beat Orlando back in March. And that for Robin Fraser, yeah, something's got to change with this Colorado Rapids team, because it's not going to get any easier in terms of their schedule. And that if you remember how they got off to that great start to the season and how they were all the way up in the top part of the table, well, now they are sliding down the table, and they are sliding down fast because of this winless run that they are in. And that in some way, this is kind of a little bit similar to what happened last season, where if you minus the first 2 games where they got off to a great start, remember how last year they went on a 12-game winless run to start the season, and that was really the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. Hopefully this time, Colorado, they will fix this up, and knowing the fact that since this is a short season, they cannot afford to keep this winless run, and hope that in the second half of the season, or at least in phase 2 of this MLS regular season, they can make a run to potentially make it to the playoffs. But moving on, in terms of the next game, is the Cali Classico. Now, I know you probably expect me to be very angry about this game. And I know I have heard a lot of Quakes fans that have complained at the referee in terms of the fact that he was the reason why we lost this Cali Classico. Well, I do agree that there was call that was against us in this game and probably could have changed the outcome of this one. I'm not going to completely blame on the referee, as is the reason why we lost this game. The reason why we lost this game is because we got outplayed by the Galaxy for most part of this one. The set piece defending in this game was just absolutely shocking for the Quakes in this one. Goalkeeping mistake from Vega. We saw it happen again in this game and ultimately cost us a goal because of that. And lastly, Almeida. Once again, he took way too long to make sub in this game. And actually, I shouldn't say once again. This is really one of the first time where Almeida actually decided to wait a little bit too long in terms of making a sub. And that in some way, you know how I said in this Minnesota game that Adrian Heath just become Mateus Almeida with those 4 changes that he made at halftime? Well, in this game, it seemed like Almeida just become Adrian Heath, and that he didn't want to make substitution, and that he actually have to wait until like the last 15 minutes before he start making substitution. And by then, you can clearly see the team was absolutely exhausted, and that they desperately need some fresh leg in terms of trying to freshen things up in this game. Now, in the first 10 minutes of this game, the Quakes did get off to a fast start, and they were rewarded with that fast start by scoring a goal early in this game from Vako and Tommy Thompson. And I thought at that point, well, looks like this is going to be an easy win for the Quakes, and that they look like they are going to be probably follow the resort that they had last year against the Galaxy and once again beat them in this one. Instead, that is not what happened, because after that goal was scored by the Quakes, the Galaxy just took control of this game, and they never let go of that control for the rest of this game. In 32nd minute, Tanner Beeson cleared Pavone's shot off the lines there. Tanner Beeson, alongside with Kate Colwell, got their first MLS start, and I thought Beeson had kind of a mixed result of a night. And while Beeson, there's been times where he was able to make a heroic kind of defensive effort, like the one that I've just mentioned of him clearing the ball off the line on Pavone's shot. there were times where you can clearly see he was making rookie mistake, and I'm not going to really judge those and just kind of bash hardly on him making those mistakes, because remember, this is his first start, and rookie mistake like that is going to happen, but it's important to see whether or not if he can learn those rookie mistake that he made from this game, and hope that he can learn from it in the next couple of games. Now, despite the fact that Beeson did make a heroic play, that was all for naught, because literally 1 minute later, Steris was able to score from Sebastian Lletget, and this one came none other from a set piece where we decided to not pick up Steris in the back post, and he easily headed that one with a free header to tie the game up at 1 apiece. Now, heading into the second half, once again, the Galaxy were controlling the game, but it was actually Kate Cowell, the 16-year-old, that was able to score from Vaco, and what a goal this was from Kate Cowell. Like, he basically cut inside and just kind of curled that one into the back of the net to get his first career MLS goal. And it's just such a shame, the fact that the Quakes lost this one, because if the Quakes did win this one, or at least maybe draw this game, this would have been a big talking point about the fact that the youngest Quakes player to ever start an MLS game also have become the youngest Quakes player to ever score a goal for the San Jose Earthquakes. Then 5 minutes later, Vega was able to deny Pavone in this game, and again, Vega, this game pretty much just summarized his time with the Quakes, because while Vega could have some heroic save throughout the game, and pretty much throughout some of the games that he's been playing, he also makes some very boneheaded kind of decision, and I'll talk about what boneheaded decision he made a little bit later in the review of this game. But before that, in the 71st minute, Pavone would be able to score a penalty, and this is where the controversy begins, because this is where a lot of Quakes fans feel like it shouldn't be a penalty for the Galaxy, and that there was no way in the world that should have been a handball on Tanner Beeson there, because it clearly hits his shoulder. And well, when I first looked, I thought that was clearly not a penalty. On the second look, I feel like the reason why this might have been called a penalty was because he kind of swing his shoulder toward the ball, and when you decide to swing your shoulder toward the ball, or swing your hand toward the ball nevertheless, that usually means that you are intentionally trying to put your hand into the ball, and that I feel like if he just tuck his arm and just not move his shoulder whatsoever, and the ball hits his shoulder like that, that probably shouldn't have been a handball. But because he kind of moved his arm and moved his shoulder toward the ball, I think that was probably the reason why it should have been a handball, which again Pavone was able to put that one away to give the Galaxy the equalizer up to that point. Then 11 minutes later, Lletget was able to give the Galaxy the go-ahead goal, and pretty much the winning goal in this one. Now, originally, I thought there should have been a handball in this call, and this one I actually do agree with some of the Quakes fans that is angry the fact that this goal should have been disallowed because of a handball, because you kind of clearly see that Lletget clearly handled that ball and kind of pushed that ball into a Quakes player, and then it deflected into the back of the net. And that I do kind of agree that Quakes fans does have a case and are angry the fact that they didn't even look at VAR in that instant. However, before when the ball actually reached to Lletget, this is where Vega made a boneheaded mistake where he basically jumped up to try to punch the ball away, and he missed the ball. And when you're a goalkeeper that miss a ball on a punch, that is definitely not a good feeling whatsoever. And that I argue that if Vega did not miss that punch and he was able to punch that one away, we would not have a discussion whatsoever about whether or not if that is a handball on Lletget or not, and that probably wouldn't have resorted the winning goal for the Galaxy in this game. But instead, that is not what happened. The Galaxy were able to win 3-2 in this one, and the shots in this game clearly shows that the Galaxy deserved to win this one with 26 shots compared to 11 that the Galaxy had. 11 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Quakes had. 3 shots off target compared to 4 that the Quakes had. 6 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Quakes had. And possession-wise, 48% possession compared to possession that the San Jose Earthquakes had in this game, and that it was just not good enough for the Quakes in this one, and that it's not going to be any easier for the Quakes, as in the next game, they're about to face a very angry LAFC team on the road, and I don't really have a good feeling about what they can, of course able to bounce back after suffering that loss against a very angry LAFC team on the road. While for the Galaxy, they proved to me that yes, they could have a consistent kind of way, and that it was not just a fluke the fact that they were able to beat LAFC in that game. Although I will say this, the defense in this game definitely did not look as good as we saw against LAFC. And in another game where when you're facing a defense that is much more tougher to crack, then I'm not quite sure whether or not if the Galaxy, of course, are going to come out victors in this game. And that, as many Quakes fans will always protest, there were definitely some referee decisions that were in favor of them was the reason why they won this game. But for me, in general, I think the reason why the Galaxy won this game was because they were by far the better team, not only on the stats line, but in whole in the game, with the way that they just pretty much controlled this game after when the Quakes got that opening goal in the 11th minute. But moving on, in terms of the next match, it is time to talk about the craziest game of this week, and probably the craziest game of this season. And ironically, this game between the Portland Timbers versus RSL shouldn't have happened because of what's going on with RSL and the owner Dale Hansen, of how he's been under a lot of scrutiny with some of the comments that he has made. Now, this morning, it was announced that Dale Hansen is going to sell the team, so I'm pretty sure RSL fans, not only the fact that they are enjoying that they did an improbable comeback in this game against the Portland Timbers, but they're now even celebrating even more, knowing the fact that their piece of shit owner is now going to finally sell the team after some of the comments that he, of course, made, and he absolutely should sell the team with the way that he did this game. But other than that, despite the fact that I was kind of surprised this game probably shouldn't have played, I was also kind of happy the fact that this game was played, and that kind of feels wrong to say that at the same time, because of just some of the most craziest and wild kind of MLS action I saw in this 8-goal thriller between the Portland Timbers and RSL. And that crazy action all started in the 6th minute when Diego Chara scored a rare goal, and I actually could have put Putner in the assist chart too for the RSL goalkeeper, because he basically just passed the ball right to Chara, almost as if saying, Diego, you haven't scored a goal in a very long time. How about I'll just pass the ball to you so you can finally get a goal on your stat sheet? Because that's exactly what happened, and Chara basically just say, oh, thank you very much. I'm just going to put the ball into the back of the net and give the Portland Timbers a 1-0 lead just 6 minutes in the game. Now, after that huge mistake from Putner, I thought RSL responded very well, and they were really pushing for the equalizer, which they would get in the 19th minute from Corey Bear, who would have a monster night tonight. Then 1 minute later, after Bear scored that equalizer, Nisgoda scores from Valeri from the corner, and this has to be an infuriating goal to concede for RSL, and probably even more infuriating than the early mistake that they concede early, because they literally just got back to level term and looked like had all the momentum, only to basically make a classic schoolboy error of being fall into the victim of you're always most vulnerable when you score a goal, and then they just completely sleep on that corner and basically gave the Timbers the lead back in that moment. Now, after the goal that they concede, I thought once again RSL did a very good job in terms of responding in this game, and that Steve Clark did had to make a couple of big saves in the first half to just keep the Timbers to be 2-1 up heading into halftime. Now, in the second half, all that pressure that RSL built in the latter part of the first half finally paid off, because in the 47th minute, I'm gonna call Krylak the Karate Kid, because he did it again. Remember how a couple of years ago he did kind of a karate kick goal against LAFC in the Western Conference playoff? Well, he did the same thing in this one, only he did it in a close range, and he was once again able to pull it off and gets the equalizer for RSL up to that point. Although, despite the fact that RSL once again had momentum and potentially getting that third goal, it would be the Timbers that eventually would get the goal, the lead back. And again, I made another mistake by putting RSL there, even though this clearly should be Portland here. But in the 70th minute, Blanco scored an absolute golazo from Ibobosi, and I wrote goal of the week with a question mark because the way that he just bent that one from about 20 yards out and pretty much just put it in the perfect place that no goalkeeper in the world was able to save is just absolutely amazing. And that the Timbers at that point was up 3-2. But again, RSL was once again pushing to try to get the equalizer. And it seemed like every time when Portland does get that goal to take the lead, RSL is just hungry to try to get the equalizer. And that Onuha actually hits the post in the 84th minute. That could have made it 3-3 in this game. Only to have right after that play, Felipe Mora would score from Blanco to get Portland a 4-2 lead. And up until that point, I didn't think RSL was going to come back from this. And that I thought this was for sure game, set, and match, with the way that when you just had a moment where you hit the post to potentially tie the game, and literally on the very next attacking sequence your opposition was able to score, that has to be super demoralizing for your team. But give credit to RSL. They kept fighting in this game, and in the 90th minute, Rossi was able to score his first ever goal for RSL, and that's Giuseppe Rossi. Scored his first goal from Krylak and Bear to make it 4-3 in this game to set up a very frantic last 4 minutes of this one. And in the 94th minute, literally right on the final play of this game and right at the death in this game, Johnson would score from Corey Bear, and what a move this was from Corey Bear. And this is kind of one of the reasons why this is considered my favorite player in MLS, because Corey Bear just did a messy-ass move by not only able to get past Paredes, but also able to get past Diego Chara. And I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of guy that is able to get past Diego Chara one-on-one, especially going forward on the attack. But Bear just completely made Chara and Paredes look like fool, and he set up a perfect ball for Sam Johnson to put that one away and complete a improbable comeback that RSL was not going to have by making it 4-4 up until that point. And that was just an absolute total collapse by the Portland Timbers. And I think after the game, Giovanni Savarese was absolutely livid with the way that the Timbers just let this one slip through. And I have to agree with him. I mean, this was a game that the Timbers clearly should have got 3 points. And knowing the fact that when you're up 4-2 with 5 minutes to go, 99 out of 100 times you should be able to hang on to that lead and able to get the result out of this one. But they don't do it because of this collapse. And now the Timbers have gone 2 games without a win, and in a game that, even though they get a point out of this one, they would feel like this is a loss for them. But as for RSL, even though they didn't get a win out of this game, of all the adversity that they had to face throughout this week, this definitely felt like a win, even though on paper they only got a point out of the effort that they got. And once again, Freddy Juarez, you know how in the last game he made some impact sub to really change the game for RSL and able to beat Colorado in the last one? He did it again in this one, bringing Sam Johnson and also Giuseppe Rossi late in the game, and they made instant impact in terms of the reason why RSL was able to get a point out of this one. Now, in terms of shots in this game, 15 shots compared to 29 that RSL had. Yes, 29 shot that RSL had in this game, and it's no wonder why the Timbers don't deserve all 3 points, because when you can see 29 shot to an RSL team that's not known for having that many shots in a game, yeah, you don't deserve to get all 3 points in this one. 5 shots on goal compared to 8 that RSL had. 5 shots off target compared to 7 that RSL had. 5 shots that was blocked compared to 14 that RSL had. And possession-wise, 42% possession compared to 58% possession that RSL had in this game. But overall, what a game this was. Even though I'm pretty sure a lot of people, including myself, feel like this game probably shouldn't have happened because of the circumstances that's going on in the MLS world for the past couple of days. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the battle of the expansion team. And in the battle of the expansion team, it was Nashville SC, the one that was able to get the 1-0 victory over Inter Miami, and also kind of made a little bit of a history in the process by getting their first ever home win at Nissan Stadium in this victory. Now, 12 minutes into this game, Robles had to rob Domenico Bocci a chance to potentially get the opening goal for Nashville. While in the 18th minute, it looked like Nashville got the opening goal when former Red Bulls player Alex Mule was able to score a goal, but unfortunately it was chopped off because it looked like as he was jumping up to head that one into the back of the net, he pushed Reyes as he was trying to jump the ball and make contacts out of that. And I know there are going to be some people feel like that push was kind of minimum contact and that in some way it kind of felt like a little bit soft, but anytime when you decide to go for the ball and if you're kind of make a little bit push off of your defender, yeah, most likely that is going to be called back. And remember, defenders, they always get the benefit of the doubt whenever they try to go for a 50-50 ball into the going for in the air, and that I feel like it was the right call in terms of the fact that goal is going to be disallowed. Now, in the 38th minute, there was no penalty that was given for Nashville after, or not for Nashville, but for Inter Miami after it looked like it was a handball on Zimmerman. And this one, I thought this was also the right call with the way that even though Zimmerman kind of did hit the ball with his hand, he was kind of sliding down, and that his hand was kind of in an unnatural position, and that maybe that is kind of the reason why there was not a penalty that is given. Now, that being said, under this new rule that FIFA is putting where it doesn't matter if the ball hits your hand in an unnatural position or not, it's going to be given a penalty. And that I feel like, this season, I have no idea if MLS is actually enforcing this rule or are they even enforcing the rule seriously. But if they are actually saying that they're going to enforce this rule, then no doubt there should have been a penalty. Because, again, even though that ball basically strikes Zimmerman's hand in a natural position, it doesn't really matter anyway, because the new rule says that it doesn't matter if you hit the ball on your head in a natural or unnatural position, it's always going to be a handball. So in the second half, and in the 54th minute, Nashville eventually get the opening goal, and it would be the former Quakes player Annabelle Godoy who scored his rare goal to make it 1-0 in favor of Inter Miami. And the funny thing about this goal is that they actually had to look at VAR in this. Yeah, the VAR official was very busy in this game, and it seemed like there were definitely a lot of dodgy kind of call that was going on, but they of course checked VAR to make sure everything is ensured during the attacking sequence that led to a goal, and they said that nothing was disturbed to chop off this goal, and Godoy goal of course would stand, and it turns out to be the winning goal. And I also love the celebration that he did, and that this celebration literally reminded me back in 2017, I believe, when he was able to score against Montreal in that opening game of against the Quakes. And that, if you wonder where that kind of hype train celebration come from, yeah, it came from that one, and it's kind of interesting to see that he hasn't forgot that celebration, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of his trademark kind of celebration. And that also, you're welcome, Nashville, in terms of trying to purchase Annabelle Godoy in terms of paying $600,000 for us, because while he did of course score a goal, and I'm always proud of seeing former Quakes player in terms of scoring goals as long as it's not against us. This is probably going to be one of the few times that he's able to score a goal, because he's not really a guy that you're going to really heavily rely on in terms of scoring great goals, and that if he does score goals, it's always going to be bangers like the one that he scored during this play. Now, in the 70th minute, Nashville had a chance to make it 2-0 after it looked like there was a penalty given for Inter Miami, and I think this was Mateus Pellegrini that looked like he brought down Mukhtar in the box, and I put looked like very likely because it definitely did not look like there was a lot of contact that Pellegrini made on Mukhtar, and in some way you could argue Mukhtar kind of went down on the ground a little bit too easily. But as the old saying goes, the ball don't lie, and it definitely did not in this instant, as Mukhtar would actually hit the post on the penalty kick, and it remains a 1-0 lead for Nashville up until that point. And for the last 20 minutes of this game, it was a frantic kind of game where Miami was putting all sorts of pressure on Nashville, and Nashville was just hanging on with their skin off their teeth, but they were able to hang on in this game, and in the end, they got a big 1-0 victory over their expansion rival Inter Miami. And in terms of shots in this game, 5 shots compared to 18 that Miami has, 2 shots on goal compared to 5 that Inter Miami has. Both teams had 3 shots off target, no shots that was blocked compared to 10 that Miami has, and possession-wise, 47% possession compared to 53% possession. And I'm pretty sure Inter Miami is going to be disappointing in this game, knowing the fact that with all the pressure that they put on Nashville in this game, especially in the last 20 minutes, they feel like they deserve to get a point out of this game. But at the end of the day, the lack of clinical finishing for Inter Miami, and that the scoreboard shows that Nashville were able to be a little bit more clinical, and most importantly, score more goals than Inter Miami did, is a reason why Nashville was able to walk out with all 3 points in this one. But finally, in terms of the last game we're going to review for this week, is the game of the week, and this game definitely did not disappoint, as it's the Seattle Sounders that were able to get a 3-1 win against LAFC. And I'll tell you what, if this is kind of a rivalry game that Seattle and LAFC has certainly developed, this has been a very evenly matched kind of rivalry game in terms of resort, and that it seemed like when you see one team that is able to blow out the other team in this rivalry, you know in the very next game that that team that got blown out is not going to forget, and they're going to return the favorite in the very next one. And in this case, the Seattle Sounder returned the favorite to LAFC after LAFC basically beat them 4-1 in the MLS's back tournament, only for this time the Sounders to able to get a 3-1 lead. And right now, LAFC, it is pretty clear that they have 2 very big problems, is the reason why they are struggling so far. One of them, they can't defend transitional attack against their opponent. And 2, goalkeeping is still a big issue in this game, and Vermeer definitely had a bit of a nightmare night. And his nightmare night all started in the 11th minute, or actually, before I talk about that, LAFC was all over Seattle early in this game, and it looked like they were most likely going to get the opening goal until Ruidíaz basically scored what looked like could be the goal of the week from about 25 yards out. And this is where I go back to talk about how Vermeer, I don't know why he was off the line so much during that play, and that, it's a heads-up play from Ruidíaz to able to see Vermeer came off his lines and just kind of strike it over his head and into the empty net. But again, Vermeer clearly should not be doing that when you are a goalkeeper that know with the quality of Ruidíaz, and that, he is definitely a lethal striker. This is something you just cannot afford to do, by basically try to cheat off the line and hope to try to come off the line very early to save that one through. Now, throughout the remaining of the first half, I thought Seattle was kind of using the same formula that the LA Galaxy was using last week, which is just play smart soccer, just be good defensively against LAFC, kind of had a bend but don't break kind of defensive standpoint, and just hit LAFC on the counterattack, which there's been a couple of times where I saw Seattle was definitely looking very dangerous on the counterattack, and probably looked more dangerous than when LAFC was trying to break down this Seattle back line. Now, in the second half, this is where the transitional dangerousness that Seattle had in this game proved to be dividends, because just 3 minutes out of the second half, Jordan Morris would score from Lidero on the set piece, and once again, I have to unfortunately mention Vermeer making a bad mistake in this instant because I feel like he came off his lines way too early in this instant. And if you're going to come off the line as a goalkeeper, one, you better get to the ball, because if you do not get to the ball and that striker basically get past you, you are in no man's land at that point. And in this case, Morris was able to get by Vermeer, who just easily tapped it into, well, I wouldn't say he tapped it in, but more like slots it into the empty net to give Seattle a 2-0 lead. Before 60 seconds later, another transitional attack for the Seattle Sounder lead to another goal, and it would be the same player, Jordan Morris, scoring from Paulo to give Seattle a 3-0 lead, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people were shocked at that point with the way how Seattle just completely ripped apart against LAFC. Although I wasn't kind of shocked knowing the fact that Seattle really looked very dangerous going forward on the counter attack, and that LAFC, there's just so many times where their defense just get completely caught napping whenever they have to defend a team that's going on the transition, and they got paid multiple times in the second half. Now, in the 60th minute, Rossi was able to score from Cifuentes and BWP to give LAFC a slight hope to potentially get back into this game. LAFC was really pushing for the second, but it always looked like the Sounders were looking comfortable on the defensive end, and that as the longer this game stays at 3-1, the more I believe LAFC probably ain't going to come back into this game, and that was just not going to be their night in terms of their attack that struggled a lot doing this one. Which, in the end, that was the final score of this. That would result the final score of this game being a 3-1 win for Seattle in this game. And the shots in this game, dead even at 10 shots apiece. 3 shots on goal compared to 4 that LAFC had. 1 shot off target compared to 4 that LAFC had. 6 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that LAFC had. And possession-wise, 44% possession compared to 56% possession that LAFC had. And that, you know, the good news for LAFC is that despite the fact that they do have these issues, at least their next game, they're playing against the San Jose Earthquakes, which means that is probably going to be what the doctors order for LAFC consider. Even though I know the Quakes are going to be playing against an LAFC team, and I hope maybe Almeida will study this formula of how the Galaxy and the Sounders are able to play against LAFC by just kind of counter-attack them and just hit them on the transition. My biggest concern about the Quakes doing that is that they definitely do not have as good as a defensive display as the Sounders and the Galaxy. And when you do not have a good defensive display against an LAFC team, yeah, you are going to get absolutely slaughtered and probably not even going to have a chance to try to hit on the counter attack. But for those teams that are able to do that, this is something that LAFC's got to solve, because, you know, this is basically the formula for them to whenever teams are going to be playing against them, and if they don't figure out this formula that teams are trying to play against them, I don't think they're going to really looking to try to win MLS Cup this year, because again, for LAFC, it is really MLS Cup or bust for them this season, and if they do not get it done, this would definitely feel like a failure season for Bob Bradley LAFC team. But that being said, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of the 6th game. I know the review was a little bit longer because I took a little bit longer time reviewing this one, and also a very controversial Cali Clasico. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 6 games, and that tomorrow I, of course, will be doing the preview for the midweek games. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.